we've seen some changes, and now they've got the collective where it's capped at $20.5 million, and that's been a big change. Are you surprised that the change has kind of come to it so slow?
You know, I'm going to give a shout out to my old boss, Nick Gilliam, right? So Nick used to always say, anytime there's an issue, follow the money trail. And what he meant by that is typically, not always, but typically, if there is some sort of issue, if you kind of backtrack it, it's a financial issue, right? And in this instance, like you said, $1 billion in the college programs, these kids not getting money. Now, all of a sudden, there's a lot of hands in the cookie jar, right?
Yeah.
And so when you get a lot of hands in the cookie jar, things slow down. But getting back to the federal regulation side, you are already starting to see a lot of stuff behind the scenes from, there's a representative in Florida that's pushing this new regulation called the SCORE Act.
Yep.
And the SCORE Act is Student Compensation and Opportunity Rights and Endorsement, something, right? But basically,
Alphabet soup.
It
soup,
literally is like
Yep.
trying to, I'm going to elevate the athlete and make
Yep.
sure that they're taken care of. There's also a SAFE Act, which is a little bit more mainstream because it's Senator Cory Booker and it is Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut, Cory Booker being of New Jersey, of
Yep.
course. And those two senators are also now kind of, hey, how do we look out for these student athletes and make sure that they're okay and that they're getting properly compensated and stuff like that. Maybe in essence, they become 1099 employees of the university. But at the end of the day, these kids, like when you think about it, so we're talking specifically college football in a lot of this.
Yeah, and that's really the conversation is college football, men's basketball. Yes, it exists in a couple other spots, but those are the revenue drivers.
Yeah, and it's a shame because there's a lot of these other programs now because of all this realignment where you've got, somebody from UCLA who normally played West Coast teams, they're having to fly across for like women's lacrosse or swimming or things like that,
Yeah.
where they're now having to fly across the country in essence to compete. And so they've got that whole deal to kind of work with. But at the end of the day, it's really in football. If
Yeah.
you look at the numbers, only 1.6% of the college football athletes make the pros. So now you have to think these kids are getting a bunch of money. Like, who is looking out for these kids? Who's looking out for their best interests? And being in this industry for about 25 years, the number one question that I typically get is, how does somebody find good financial representation? And the answer that I always give them is, it really is kind of a twofold answer.
Yep.
Number one, you want to have somebody who's a fiduciary.
Yep.
And the definition of that for people that don't know is a fiduciary is somebody who has to act in your interest, right? Legally, they're required to act in your best interest.
And it's a test they have to take to get that certification.
Yeah, typically
it's not just
Series 65 license exam and stuff like that. Exactly,
Yep.
right? And then the other thing for me, and this is probably just me, so it doesn't, I don't want to belittle anybody that's with a big corporation, but I always try to find somebody who's independent. And what I mean when I tell people to try and find somebody who's independent is try to find somebody who doesn't work for a big company where they've got certain things on the truck that they're promoting, right?
Yeah.
Try to find somebody who's independent that could go anywhere. Because the truth about holistic planning, especially for these young kids that are getting this chunk of money and who knows, a lot of them come from very humble means.
Yeah, it's a life-changing amount of money.
It's a life-changing amount of money, and it should last them their life, right? And so they have to have good sound advice. So, somebody who's independent could use life insurance, that obviously long-term care as somebody gets older, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, manage money, annuities like we talked about before. You want somebody who really kind of says, okay, based on your personal needs, let's look at all these things that are available to you and let's figure out what's in your best interest.